anymore. The difference between hard work versus hustle. Okay? And I've seen both sides of the fence, guys. I mean, these days, I'm a self-made millionaire. I have a very successful business. Even before the business, I worked for a Fortune 100 company. I beat out hundreds, maybe even thousands of candidates to get that job. And I've always been a big believer in hustle over hard work. Okay? And I've started to see this, fortunately, I started to see this early in life because both my parents were blue collar. Both my parents worked their asses off, right? They both have, like, when I was growing up, they both had 2 jobs. At least my dad had 2 jobs and my mom had a job and she was going to school at the time, right? Because my parents were in their 20s when I was younger. So I remember my dad working 2 jobs. He used to just carry boxes. Like, he used to do a lot of shipping for one company he worked for, and then he also worked for Kaiser Hospital, where he did shipping and receiving there. So he was constantly just working very hard. Same thing with my mom. My mom was a teacher, right? And she was going to school to get her graduate degree. And my mom ended up teaching in the San Francisco's Unified School District for, I want to say, about 30 years, until she just retired not that long ago. But both my parents worked very, very hard. I saw them just coming home, always tired, getting ready for the next shift. And I remember as a kid, I was like, can't you guys just stay home once in a while? And they were like, no, we have to work. You know, we want to give you a better life. We don't want you to have to do this. We want you to be able to go to a good school, get your education, and then, you know, get a good job. And I remember going, okay, so will I be doing this too, though? And they're like, well, you'll be working, you know, like 9 to 5. So yeah, I was always kind of like, I've always raised an eyebrow to that thought process, you know, much to my parents' chagrin. And it wasn't until my sister married an entrepreneur. I was a teenager at the time. I was in my teens. My sister is a bit older than me, but she married an entrepreneur who had his own business, and he showed up at our house in a Mercedes, in a suit, and like a Rolex watch and all this other stuff I'd never seen before. It was insane. There had never ever been a Mercedes on my block, put it that way, until this guy showed up at my parents' house. I remember just coming home from school one day, I see this Benz in our driveway. I'm like, what? You know, and then I come upstairs and there's this guy in a suit and all this, and I'm like, what is this guy, like a doctor or a lawyer or something like that? And they're like, no, he's an entrepreneur. I'm like, what's that? Like, oh, that means he has his own businesses, right? He had multiple businesses at the time. This guy kind of took me under his wing, which I really appreciate, you know. He didn't, you know, it's not like he was there like 24/7. He really taught me a lot, and I really just learned a lot from observation. And that was when I realized, I'm like, okay, well, he told me that he never graduated college. So that was like a big epiphany for me. I'm like, really? You didn't have to go to school for this? And that was like a huge epiphany. And I was thinking, okay, I want to be like this guy, right? Because he has everything he wants. I was looking at my friends' parents, right, who had graduated college, and the jobs that they had and the cars that they were being picked up in. They would come pick up my friends in their cars, and they just had like average cars. And I mean, it was no Benz or Jaguar or anything like that. But here's this guy, never went to school, and he had the lifestyle I wanted. So I'm like, okay, obviously there's, you know, a discrepancy in our system here, because my parents and my teachers and basically society at large is telling us, even to this day, shockingly, even to this day, is telling us that, hey, if you want to be successful, you got to work hard, right? You got to work hard. You got to go to school. You got to get good grades. And then you got to go out and try to get yourself a good job with that, you know, with that worthless degree that you got. I just never bought into that, man. I've told a story before, but I remember when I went to my first day at college, when I was like registering for classes, and I just remember, this is before the internet, right? Before I was registering for classes, and the line was like for blocks and blocks. I couldn't believe how long this line was. It was like a 3 to 4 hour line. And I remember my dad waking me up at 5 a.m. in the morning. He goes, hey, you got to go get in that line and register for classes. And I got there like at about 5:30, closer to 6 o'clock, and there was like a 4-hour line. I remember just waiting in that line forever just to register for classes. I'm looking at all these students in front of me with their book bags and their pens and their pencils. And I'm thinking, like, shit, am I gonna have to like compete with all these vultures here for good grades to get a good job and all this? I mean, because I didn't do the best in school. I'm like, I am not gonna make it doing this. And I kept thinking about, you know, my sister's husband. His name was Chris. I kept thinking about Chris. And I was like, do I even need to be here? I mean, I ended up registering for classes, but I didn't give it my all. I just had other ideas in mind. And I stayed in school for all those 4 years, but during the time I was there, I was constantly starting businesses. I was constantly looking for opportunities to where I could make money without having to follow the beaten path, because that's really what society wants you to do. They want you to follow the beaten path. And there's a better way, right? There's a better way. So when I see, you know, I see people out there just like working their asses off, working so hard to barely scrape by, I just feel like just taking them, and I just want to like educate them, right? And you might be one of these people, right? You might be one of these people. And I'm not saying that, you know, there's anything wrong with going to college or university if you want to get a professional degree. If you want to become a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, an architect, or anything like that where you need to be licensed by the state, then you have no choice. You have to go to college. Totally understand. You got to go to college. But if you don't know what you want to do with your life, or if you just want to study business like I studied in college, right? That's not something you need. I mean, that is something that you could just go out there and start doing now. I mean, even if you don't have any interest in starting your own business, you can go out and start interning with these companies. You can start going out there and hustling, because let me tell you, man, you will get a lot further in life. You will get a lot richer in life, and you will get there a lot faster in life than if you were to focus on just working hard, okay? Because there's a big difference between hard work versus hustle, okay? Because when you hustle, you create leverage for yourself. Okay, when you're hustling, you're creating leverage for yourself. Well, when you're working hard, you're really not creating leverage, right? You're just working hard for a paycheck. It's kind of the difference between being a tactician versus a strategist. If you look at most people out there, the reason why most people are sucking in life out there is because most people are merely tacticians, right? They're very tactical. They're very practical in the way they go about their lives, right? Whereas you have to become a strategist, right? You want to strategize. You want to start strategizing your life, right? I teach something in my Alpha Male Secrets program called Grand Strategy, right? Where you want to look at your life and plan it backwards. So you want to imagine yourself being like 80, 90 years old, sitting in, you know, your deathbed or whatnot, and just looking back on your life and what you want your life to look like, right? Where do you ultimately want to be in life? What are the things you ultimately want out of life? And then planning backwards, right? And just strategizing so you can start living your life and shifting your focus towards achieving those goals, right? Towards achieving that lifestyle that you ultimately have planned for yourself. You know, and that's something I did a long time ago. I mean, it's really ominous. Like a lot of the things that I wanted, that I've plotted in my head, have come true. Because let me tell you, man, hard work is definitely not enough, especially these days, okay? Especially these days. At one point in history, you were able to get away with just working hard, right? Back in like the 50s, maybe even the 60s, and even the 70s, right? You were able to just go to school, get pretty good grades, and then take that college degree and go apply with a company where you could earn a pretty good living, right? You could afford a house, and they would take care of you for the rest of your life, right? You would have a pension and all this other stuff. That doesn't work anymore. It's almost like we're in the wild, wild west all over again, but with technology, okay? Where technology has created this wild, wild west environment where like real estate has exploded in cost. People are getting filthy rich everywhere. Other people are getting, you know, dirt poor. It's creating this big wedge where we are really eliminating that middle class, right? It's almost like in the future, you're either going to be dirt poor or filthy rich. And if you're following my work, I want you to become filthy rich, right? Maybe you're not going to be a billionaire or anything like that, or maybe you are. I don't want to put any limiting beliefs in your head. You're right, we don't know. But I want you to be financially independent, where you don't have to worry about money. And the way you get there is not through hard work, it's through hustle, right? So once you find out what you want to do with your life, and you've created a strategy for yourself to get there, right? To get there financially, mentally, physically, spiritually. Once you've got the strategy to get there, then you work hard. You work hard towards that, okay? Versus working hard towards what everyone else is working hard towards. And when I was in that line registering for classes in college, I mean, I will never forget that. That was like a defining moment in my life where I just, even though I stayed in school, I didn't like drop out, I stayed. I just never gave it my all. I goofed off a lot. I just didn't put my effort and energy in, and my grades were very average. I mean, I think I got like C's and D's. I just didn't try. I didn't care. My focus was on starting my own businesses, right? Which is what I did. I mean, it's weird because that image is still implanted in my head. This 4-hour line of just a sea of students, a sea of backpacks, a sea of people like college students all registering for classes like I was. And I'm like, there is no way I can compete with these vultures if it comes down to grades, because a lot of these people are way smarter than me, way textbook smart. I had to look at myself and be like, where am I skilled? What can I do? And I was always good with sales. I was always good with people. So I went out and I started creating businesses that revolved around that, where I could sell things, I could connect with other people, I could network and stuff like that. Because I knew that just sitting in this line and then trying to go to school and, you know, follow the beaten path was not going to get me far. It was not going to get me far. I mean, even the corporate job that I got was not a result of school. I got that job because I hustled. I don't know, I don't think I've ever told this story, but like I said, there were hundreds of candidates that I had to beat out, maybe even over 1,000, right? And I remember I was one of the last persons to be interviewed, right? I was interviewed. It was like, what was it? Well, the first thing I had to do was I had to take this test. It was like a psychological test. And the first time I didn't pass it, I didn't pass the psychological test. So I had to wait like 3 months to take this test again. So I retook the test. This time I passed it, right? Because I found a way to outsmart it. So I outsmarted the psychological test and I passed it. Then that enabled me to get into the very first interview. And through that, I went through a series of interviews, and there was one of the people in HR that was like a final decision maker. And I had already interviewed with her like twice, and she had to choose between me and like 25 or 35 other candidates. So I was just proud of the fact that I got down to the last 25 or 35 candidates. But I needed this job at the time because the stock market just crashed. I lost everything in the .com bubble of 2000. So I was broke. I needed this job. And so this lady, I was one of the last ones to be interviewed that day, and she was like, oh yeah, you know, this will be the final interview before I make my decision, and then I will let everyone know, you know, before the end of the week who's going to get the job or not, or who we're going to hire. I was like, okay, that's great. So I did my interview, everything went well. And then I went downstairs because I had seen her leave that way through the building. This was at Rincon Center in San Francisco in the financial district. I knew where she would get off the elevator, and then she would just kind of like walk all the way to like BART. So I purposely sat downstairs in the kind of lobby area and just kind of nonchalantly waited for her. Stalked her, right? Nonchalantly just waited for her, pretending I was doing my own thing. And then of course, like an hour later, like an hour of waiting there, she finally gets off the elevator, starts walking off, and I just pretended that I just happened to be there. I was like, oh, hey, Victoria. And she was like, oh, hi, Matt. And I was like, oh, how are you doing? How's how are the rest of the interviews? She was like, well, you were the last one. I just had to finish up some work. I was like, oh, okay, that's great. And I'm like, oh, are you walking this way? And she was like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, I'm walking this way too. And I started walking with her, walked her all the way to BART. We had a conversation. I started working a little pickup on her, a little game. I was like, even though she was much older, I wasn't interested in her, but I did, right? And I was like, oh, so where are you from originally? And she was telling me, oh yeah, I'm from Oakland originally. I was like, oh yeah, where'd you go to high school? And then we were talking about college and school. We started talking about family. I mean, I just worked basic pickup and worked basic game on her. Walked her all the way to the BART. Okay, I walked her all the way to the BART and we had this lovely 25 minute conversation together. And I ended it. I was like, okay, well, I'm like, I really enjoyed talking to you, and I really I hope we get to work with each other, right? I just put it out there, and surprise or no surprise, I ended up getting the job. She ended up hiring me. So it was one of those moments where it was kind of like a Pursuit of Happiness moment. You guys ever see that movie, Pursuit of Happiness, with Will Smith? I really relate to that movie. I really relate to that movie at that time in my life, just because I was going broke and I really needed to do something fast, and I needed to take a job, and I wasn't going to just take any job. I wanted to take a good job, and that was one of the best jobs in the entire city, and I wanted it. So I hustled. But had I just sat back like all the other candidates, just did everything verbatim, did the interviews, took the tests, and we all passed those tests, they still had to choose between 25 to 35 candidates, right? What are the chances of me being chosen out of these people who are way more educated than I was, way more qualified than I was? What would have been the chances? I don't know, right? But I didn't want to take that gamble. So I waited for the HR director to get off of the elevator so I could walk with her, talk with her, spend more time with her, let her get to know me, so hopefully she would choose me, which she did, right? Which, again, surprise or no surprise, but it was an example of me hustling, right? I just went the extra mile. And these are the things you have to do, guys. This is the kind of shit you have to do if you want to get things done, right? If you want to go anywhere in life and you want to get things done, these are the things that you have to do. The problem is most people don't do these things. Most people are lazy. Most people don't want it enough. And if you want something bad enough, you have to go get it, right? And I think Will Smith said that in Pursuit of Happiness as well. Love that movie. Love that scene too, where he finally got hired. I still kind of choke up at that scene because I remember the same feeling. I was just like so broke at that time. I needed that job. And within 6 months of getting that job, I bought myself a top-down Mercedes. I was totally back on my feet, right? Because when I lost everything in the stock market crash, my girlfriend, my longtime girlfriend, had just left me. Yeah, I was all on my own, man. It was a tough time, but it's times like that you find out what you're made of, and really, even just getting that job, just by getting that job, I had surpassed everybody that I went to high school with, everybody that I grew up with, all my college friends. Like, I had a better job than these guys, and these guys really busted their ass to get their jobs. It's like, I had a better job than them. I was working for a Fortune 100, right? I had just bought myself a top-down Mercedes. These guys were still like just basically living an average life, and so that's what hustle can do for you, right? When you don't follow the beaten path, when you don't do the same exact things that everyone else out there is doing, right? You have to go your own way, right? You have to follow the unbeaten path. You have to just kind of just be a pioneer almost and just carve out your own way of doing things. And this is why I've always taught you guys what's more important than school and education is finding out what your unique talents and skills are, what you can go out there and become the best in the world at, okay? Where you feel you could add the most value to other people's lives, and then go pursue that, right? Whether that requires school or not. You have to listen and trust your gut, okay? Don't follow the beaten path. Don't do what everybody else is doing. God forbid, don't bust your ass working hard towards something that is not gonna have a big enough payoff for you at the end of the line, right? That's why we have that expression, is the juice worth the squeeze? The juice has to be worth the squeeze. Okay, now don't get me wrong. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with hard work, okay? There's nothing wrong with hard work when you're working towards something that you are meant to do, that you should be doing, right? Like when it comes to my business right now and teaching students and creating content for you guys, I bust my ass. I'm working my ass off, right? Most nights I'm just like so exhausted. I'm busting my ass. But you know what? It's a different type of hard work, right? It's going towards something that is bigger than anything I ever imagined, okay? It's not like I'm busting my ass towards a corporate job. When I worked for the Fortune 100, I was literally working 15 hours a week. Once I got my job down, like I knew what I was doing, I literally had that job down to 15 hours a week. Okay, because I was doing advertising consultant, and a lot of it revolved around me just getting advertisers to sign new contracts, and that was something I was able to do very fast. It wasn't hard for me. It didn't take that much work, and I didn't want to dedicate that much work to it because I had bigger plans. I had bigger ideas. I wanted to build a business. So you have to find out what it is that you really want to do with your life, and then carve out a way to do that. Even when I started my pickup business, people were like, no, now's not the time. It's like, it's dying and nobody's doing it anymore. And I started it during an era where it was dying and nobody was doing it anymore. And still I made it successful because I believed in it. And it was something that I was good at. You know, something that I knew I could add value to other men's lives, right? And it was something that I enjoyed. That's why I don't mind working hard at it. But imagine working hard at a job that you hate, that sucks, that you wish you could just move on from. You know, that's not the kind of life you want to live because we're not going to be here for that long, right? So when it comes to hard work versus hustle, right? Always choose hustle. That's way more important than hard work, okay? Because hard work can only get you so far and then it'll get you killed. Like I said, over 70% of men who retire at 65, they die within 5 years. That's pathetic. That's horrible. It's horrible, right? So I'm gonna wrap up here. Until next time, this is Matt Cross from Alpha Male Secrets. Do not forget to destroy that like button below. Also, hit that notification bell right next to it so that you're notified whenever I release a brand new coaching video here on the YouTube. More importantly, guys, make sure you subscribe to my channel, okay? Very, very important you guys subscribe to my channel if you're not subscribed yet, because you are going to learn a ton. Right? You're gonna learn a ton from this channel. So make sure you're subscribed as well. And for you guys who want to support my work and all of this red pill content even further, the best way to do that is by becoming a premium subscriber of my premium Alpha Male Secrets channel, which I am hosting on a private platform away from YouTube for obvious reasons. You guys who follow my Instagram and follow my posts, you see that YouTube is constantly demonetizing my videos. They've even flagged a few for like hate speech. I'm like, really? Really? Right? So I'm hosting my premium Alpha Male Secrets channel on a private platform away from YouTube where you could get signed up right now for just $1. So it's just $1 for the entire first month of premium Alpha Male Secrets coaching lessons from me. And this is the absolute best way to support my work and support my content and support my channel and all of this red pill knowledge that you're learning here on my channel, right? So it's real easy to sign up. All you need to do is click that link below in my description box. It will take you over to my website where you could get signed up right now. It just takes 2 seconds, so do that now, and I will see you in my next coaching video.